Hey guys, DMS here. Today I have for you the closed back version of the ZMF Verite. Now I reviewed this one last time and here we go. This is, as far as I know, the same driver as the open back version, the new ZMF Beryllium drivers, only with slightly different tuning, and of course it is a closed back headphone. Now this one is a little bit heavier than the magnesium chassis Verite that I tried, but apparently this is available in the same lightweight chassis if that's what you're looking for. It will always have just a little bit more weight, however, because it is closed back. But apparently it can make quite a difference. After feeling the other one and how much lighter it made it, I would not be surprised if it made a huge difference for these as well. Though it's worth noting also on top of that, that the different materials do change the sound of the tuning somewhat. Now build-wise, this is basically, it's a ZMF headphone. It's built amazingly. I said this in my last video. Pretty much all ZMF headphones are a work of art in their own respect. This pair is interesting because I had mixed feelings on the sound at first and it changed over time. This seems to have all the benefits of the open Verite that I just reviewed, but a few drawbacks. The upper mid-range and lower treble, and sometimes upper treble, could definitely be a little bit too forward with the stock pads. However, with these being a closed back headphone, the isolation is better, and with the amount of detail that I was pulling out of these, the song I was just listening to was 9 Inch Nails, 13 Ghosts 2. And you could just so easily hear the piano's keys lifting back up as he would move his hands to play different notes. And it was the softest but most articulated sound, and that was excellent. That's something in that song that I don't hear nearly that clearly on many headphones. But then I would play a track with vocals in it, like the next one that came up was totally different, Thug Life by Brockhampton. I tried listening to Pink Floyd and Creedence Clearwater Revival and Fleetwood Mac and Mac Miller and Hobo Johnson and all kinds of other interesting things on here. And I find that with a lot of things, the stock leathers were just a little bit too much going on in that upper range and that upper mid-range for me. That was until I tried them with these pads. This is the ZMF Micro Suede pads that I got with a pair of Icon about a year ago. And with these pads on the closed Verite, it is an entirely different game. This is one thing that I'm really thankful for that ZMF does, is they make it reasonably easy to swap on a pair of pads. I don't know why more companies don't do this. It's literally just a lip on the headphone right there. And all you do is just slide your pad on, and it works. The simplest solution is often the best one. That may not always be the case in audio, but it's definitely the case when it comes to pad mounting systems. More people should do this. Take notes. Now, with these pads on them, these don't compress nearly as much. These become comically large on my head. You can imagine a person's head in the middle here and just see how huge these are going to be on your head. That is nice that the suspension strap kind of pulls out when you put it on too, but I wouldn't be caught wearing these out at a grocery store or anything like that. Not to say that I haven't tried, but I don't think I would do that again. This is definitely something that I would enjoy much more at home, though the isolation was much more than impressive. This is probably the most isolating pair of ZMF headphones I've tried. I'll stop rambling about that though. With these pads, instead of just the regular old leathers, with these micro suede pads, it tames that area, pulls it back a little bit, makes it a much more relaxed headphone in the highs and upper mid-range, and kind of levels it out. But the bass does become very strong. It's not muddy, but it is strong and pronounced on these when you put on micro suede pads. But I feel like it is part of the trade-off. And I don't necessarily feel like it's a bad trade-off. I feel like if you wanted a more balanced Verite, this is the way to go. And there may be a pad that works well on this headphone that does balance it out. But I feel like if you want a balanced Verite and want that crazy fast decay and all of that detail, the open is the way to go with a magnesium chassis. If you're going to get any of these, get the magnesium chassis. And if you want something a little more fun and laid back and warmer, I would go with the closed Verite and the ZMF Micro Suede pads. You may like the sound with the stock pads. It wasn't to my flavor. The detail was there, the resolution was there, the separation was there, the imaging was there. The soundstage, oddly enough, sounds bigger on the closed ones than it does on the open ones, but in a different way. The open Verites, if you saw my review for that, if you haven't, you should watch it after this. The open Verite, I'll go over this one point again, has interesting soundstage to where it's narrow, but it seems to open up with at least one part of every track. Sometimes it's a drum that plays out here, or a guitar or something. Whereas these didn't open up to be quite as wide with certain instruments. They always had more width generally, at least with these pads on there. They always had more width to them. It didn't go quite as far out into the expanses when it hit a really, really far out piece like with the Verite open, but for the most part, it wasn't quite as narrowed in as the open Verite, which I found very interesting because, like I said, it's a closed headphone. But as far as closed headphones go, Icon used to be the king. And I say used to be because I feel like with this pad placement, this is definitely the king of closed headphones right now. Now, like I said, you may prefer the leather pads. And I do feel like I was getting a little bit more resolution out of the mid-range with these leather pads. And I think at that point, it's going to come down to what types of music you're listening to. If you're listening to something really aggressive and forward with a lot of vocals and a lot of highs, you're going to have micro suede. Either that or you're going to have a higher tolerance for upper mid-range and treble than I. But I feel like with anything acoustic, or if you listen to like Bon Iver or folk or any type of older music, you are probably going to be fine with these leather pads, because I feel like a lot of older music is less compressed. I feel like a lot of older music is less aggressive. And I feel like that's another thing here. I feel like with music that is less compressed, and when I say compressed, I'm not talking about the compression of the actual file, I'm talking about dynamic range. If you're listening to music that has more dynamic range, I feel like you can get away with these pads just fine, because the songs I listened to that had a lot of dynamic range, the songs I listened to that were not as hard limited, sounded really good on the stock pads. That's kind of a toss-up. It really depends on what you're listening to and what your preferences are. But I will definitely leave it at these pads are the safer of the two choices in my personal opinion. But overall, if you're willing to make that choice between two sets of pads and don't mind the warmer sound, this thing is an absolute beast and is definitely one of the best, if not the best, closed headphone that I've heard, displacing Icon in my personal opinion at the moment, because this does not suffer from the same 6K spike that Icon suffered from. But if you just want the ultimate ZMF sound, at the time of filming this video, I think that is the open back Verite. So I am going to leave it at that. If you want early access to the next review, my Patreon will be linked in the video description. It is only $1 to get early access to videos and help support the channel so reviews like this can happen in the future. And as always, if you like this video, please leave a like down below, comment letting me know what you want to see in the future, and don't forget to stick around and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Until the next one, guys. Peace.